So for this x-ray, if we start off by looking at the positioning on it, you can see I've drawn in the cranial landmarks there in the black lines are outlining where the diaphragm is. I have a star on the apex of the heart. Then the little arrows there that are taking you up the 2 to 3 intercostal spaces cranial to the xiphoid process. And that is where our cranial landmark would be. So that is in our field of view. If we look back to our caudal landmark, have a little dot drawn on the greater trochanter. Our caudal landmark is in the view. This patient also looks like they're pretty straight. The spinous processes look fairly straight and things look superimposed. So positioning, pretty good for this radiograph. So to start with, let's evaluate this radiograph on its positioning. So if we're looking at our cranial landmark, we cannot see the full entirety of the diaphragm. Kind of comes here and it goes off of the screen. We also cannot see the apex of the heart. What I do like about this one is showing why it's so critical. If we don't have basically that full diaphragm, we'd be missing this whole area of the stomach. This is an x-ray of an animal that has barium in its GI system. We're looking at our caudal landmark. It's also not here. It's somewhere back there. We're looking for the greater trochanter of the femur. As far as centering, they didn't do too bad, but they're missing their cranial and caudal landmark. So when we're looking at this x-ray, I've also put on this one our cranial and caudal landmarks. Cranial, we can see the apex of the heart. We have the whole full diaphragm where the 2 to 3 intercostal space is cranial to the xiphoid. That's good. And our caudal landmark does include the full greater trochanter, so everything looks good there. Positioning wise as well, this animal looks pretty straight. The spine is running down in a straight line down the abdomen. It's bisecting the abdomen pretty equally, and things look pretty symmetrical on either side of that abdomen. So positioning, pretty good on this x-ray. So when we're looking at this x-ray to evaluate positioning, we'll start with the simple one. Our caudal landmark is here. We can see the greater trochanters of the femur. These legs could be pulled down a little bit more caudally, but we can see the greater trochanter and the muscle masses are out of the way. However, we can't see the diaphragm. The apex of the heart is definitely not in the x-ray, so we have not gone those 2 to 3 spaces cranial to the xiphoid for this x-ray. The other thing you guys can see on this one, these lines right here, all of these are an animal that was radiographed while laying in one of the troughs. You can see the lines of those on the x-ray. So you do want to make sure if you have a bigger animal, that they're not pressed right up to the edge as this one is. Otherwise they're going to be hanging over the trough. Then the trough is in your field of view and we don't have a very good x-ray. You need to make sure that is outside of your field of interest when you're taking your x-ray.